Welcome to Epiphanies, the podcast, where we explore the breakthrough moments that change everything. I'm Anna Gergen, launch coach and founder of Epiphanies Coaching. And this season, I'm sitting down with people from all walks of life to explore the awakenings, hard lessons, and unexpected epiphanies that shaped who they became. My hope is that somewhere in their story, you'll see yourself differently and have an epiphany of your own. Let's dive in. This is Epiphanies, the podcast. This season, we're exploring the moments that change everything, the breakthroughs, the hard lessons, the awakenings, and the unexpected realizations that shape who we become. Because every remarkable life has a moment where something shifts, and what happens after that changes the trajectory of everything. So today's guest is Jessica Hammock, the one and only. Jessica is a trauma recovery coach, a licensed trauma specialist, speaker, author, and founder of Vibrant Voice. She also serves as the director of behavioral and mental health for a large charter school in Texas, my home state, supporting over 25,000 students across 100 campuses. But behind all those accomplishments is a woman who knows firsthand that healing isn't simply something that you study, it's something that you live. Over the years, Jessica has walked through her husband's traumatic brain injury and memory loss, a decade-long journey with infertility and significant physical illness. And through it all, she discovered that something that changed the trajectory of her life. She realized that hope isn't something we manufacture. Hope isn't something we achieve by trying harder or thinking harder. Hope is something that we learn. And today, she helps women unwind the treasure from trauma, reconnect with their God-given identity, and walk in the freedom and healing that have always been available to them. So Jessica, I am so honored to have you here, and I can't wait to explore the epiphanies that shaped your journey. Welcome to Epiphanies.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, I am too. I mean, it makes total sense why you and I just like totally click and hit it off, right?
Yes, yes.
Our mission in life is a little bit aligned. It's not a little bit aligned,
Oh,
it's
I know.
very aligned.
When I first heard you on a Zoom, I was like, where have you been all my life? Like, why do I not know you?
Same, same. I was like, wait, who is this? And how do we become best friends?
Yes.
So good. Oh man, let's just dive right in because that's what we do, right? So when people meet you today, they see this successful woman, this counselor, this leader, this coach, and I want to go back to the moments before all of that, the moments that created the person that you are today. So before the healing, before the transformation, before the journey that brought you here, what did young Jessica imagine that life would look like? And what were some of the dreams and expectations that she carried into adulthood?
Ugh, such a good question. Young Jessica. There is a lot of my very young childhood that I think I was looking to use my voice. I
Mm.
have small memories of times when I loved being on stage. I would do plays and things like that. We would make up those things at home, and there was moments that I have looked at back through my timeline where that shifted. And part of it is become choosing to become somebody that felt like they had to perform a certain way, to still have that same freedom. And it's been really interesting to watch now that I have a child, like seeing the wonder in their eyes and the way they show up. And she'll look at herself in the mirror and she's like, "Girl, you look good." And I'm like, did I do that? Was I like that? And there was a version of me that was like that, but my mom and I have talked about I wasn't always like that. My point is like, I believe that when God talks about him wanting us to be childlike in faith, that's what he wants us to be like. This moment where we can look in the mirror and like, girl, like you're good. Like appreciate yourself.
Wow.
Instead of feeling like you have to perform a certain way, show up a certain way, think through things, adjust your actions, calibrate everything, figure out all the details. And part of what I have uncovered in that identity work that I've done and the healing through all the trauma that I have gone through in my life and things like that is that I am the gift. I am the gift. Me just showing up in spaces is the gift. Um, but it took a long time to kind of understand that, and it's still sometimes reworking through those patterns. I knew back at that stage, I believe I knew based on looking back that I believed that I was the gift, and how I showed up was celebrated and enjoyed and good. And I think that through lies and circumstances and all those things, I chose that it had to be something else than it was.
That's so good. You just shifted a perspective for me because childlike faith, I actually do an activation with my clients
Mm,
where they imagine themselves as a toddler, a young child, right? And
hmm
I have them imagine whoever their most trusted adult in their life was at the time, right? And we
hmm
walk through this whole activation where they're going somewhere with this adult. And as a child, you don't worry about what time you're going to
Yes.
be there, what time you're going to leave, if you're going to get a flat tire on the way. You don't worry about if you have money to buy gas. You don't worry
Mm-mm.
about who's going to be there, right? You just go with, in my case, like you just go with your daddy or you go with your mom, right?
Yeah.
And you know that you're completely taken care of. You don't have to worry about a thing. You just get in the back seat. That's it.
Yeah.
So there's this whole analogy of using that for how we can trust God now in our adult life of like not having to worry about the provision, not worrying
Right.
about the timing, not worrying about the detail, but just being like, actually, I get to just get in the back seat. But
hmm
childlike wonder in and of itself is something I think we should all lean into and try to capture more of. But what I'm hearing from you is actually childlike wonder in even who we are, childlike wonder in our
Yeah.
own identity.
Yeah. Yeah.
So good. What do
Yeah.
you think are like because I know with your background and all of your experience, you can probably answer a question of this depth, but what do you think some of the things that happen along the way that start to shift our perspectives and not have us have that same level of childlike faith that you're describing right now?
I think one is a natural progression of the development of humanity. You know,
Mhm.
when we're up until 4 or 5, we function through a lot of logic and reasoning. And I want to say this is the framework for any of the listeners out there. This context that I'm talking about with my daughter and kind of this process, it comes from a place where I believe she has really secure attachment and there's not trauma surrounding this. So for an individual who has faced trauma, especially before the age of 5, this is significantly going to be have more work attached to it to kind of find those moments where they felt like they could really be like themselves and they didn't have to survive to protect. So I believe the work can
That's
be
good.
done. First of all, I want to
Yeah.
say that. But in a healthy attachment style in life, in a normal development where you didn't endure significant trauma or survival skills, the way they develop is this sense of wonder and understanding. I personally believe the veil is thinner between heaven and them. They are able to see and know a lot more. As I watch my nieces and nephews and then my daughter kind of grow up through that early toddlerhood, especially before they would start talking, I would watch them watch the environment. Like they would look off, they would watch, they would point. And I'm like, I believe you can see things that we cannot see, and you don't
Mm-hmm.
have the words to articulate it yet.
Yep.
But what we know about natural humanity is that this version of like empathy kicks in a different way when an individual is around 7 years old. In fact, they say that's when there's a particular type of soldier in and I don't remember what it is, but they begin a training for a specific kind of soldier when the child is 7 because they know that at that time the ability to have, and some kids have natural empathy anyways, but that ability to kind of look at somebody and realize I'm hurting you and harming you kicks in around 7 for kids. And so
Wow.
they start this training around the age of 7. It's some specific type of soldier that I don't want to mess it up because I know my fact checkers are going to be like, it's da 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 da.
I
Anyways,
know.
I apologize. I wasn't going to go here, so I
Story of
didn't
my
pull it up.
life.
Right.
No,
But
it's all good.
they begin training because they want to bypass that in those kids. So they begin training them for war, for killing, for taking a life, because they want to bypass that lodging in their brain that if they have to take someone's life, that they can do it and they're not going to look in their eyes and hesitate. So there's this natural progression of of children changing, but everything is logical black and white up until about 10 or 11 when we start to apply logic and reasoning. And so when we're in really healthy states and we have the freedom to be ourselves and the freedom to, we're celebrated, like we can explore, we can try new things and we're celebrated in that. And parents provide that sort of sense of like, okay, if you don't like to do this, we'll figure out like what do you like to do? What do you enjoy? Let's just go with it. Let's see where your creativity is or your organization is or what lights you up, and that's celebrated. And early childhood, especially up until about school age, and kids can have those experiences. That's the wonder piece, I think, that really begins to shape. When we start listening to other voices or when there's always correction for who we are and what we have permission to do, I think that begins the patterns of shifting. We're always at the baseline looking for love and acceptance.
Yes. Wow.
And if we perceive we have love and acceptance, love and belonging, William Glasser defines like basic needs, sort of similar to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but he kind of says the five types of needs are love and belonging, fun, freedom, survival, and power. And so it could be any one of those needs, but most commonly in childhood, especially in those early years, we're looking for love and belonging. And so the
Mm,
patterns that we learn of what is love and belonging, do I belong here or do I have to fit in? Which means I have to adjust to get love and belonging. And
so
so
good.
it's just such a shift. And when we have love and belonging that shows up, then we have the capacity to explore that wonder of who we are.
Yes, so good. And when you just listed those things off that are critical foundational needs, the one I caught on to quickly was fun because I've been thinking a lot about that recently. And as adults, like, we really don't play as much as we should, in my opinion. I think most of us don't anyway. I was at the park the other day and I was looking at the playground and I'm like, I love the swings, but these swings hurt my hips. They're not
Yeah,
made for
yeah.
me as an adult. And so I'm like, why don't we have adult-sized playgrounds? I want to go down a big slide. Like,
Well, they have them. You just have to pay a lot to be in them. They're called amusement parks.
my point being,
Yeah, I get
there is
it.
an element of fun and play we lose in our
There is we
responsible
lose.
adulthood.
Which is why I think that that verse is like, being like little children. The To your point, they don't worry about things. A lot of little kids also don't have a hesitation to ask either. Like they have no problem walking right up to mom and dad. Can I have this? Can I have this? Can I have snacks? Even though I just ate dinner. In fact, that was one of the podcast episodes I did. I'm like, can I have snacks? Like, how often do they ask parents for snacks? All the time, even though full meals are provided. They want to live on the snacks, even when
Yes.
yeah, but there's this element of like, can I have this? Can I have this? Can I have this? And there's so many adult Christians that I've met. They're like, I can't pray that prayer. And I'm like, why not?
It's so true. And you have not because you ask not.
Yeah. I
You
mean, and
just need to ask.
I tell people I get God and I have so like we have one of those relationships. So sometimes like it's deep, meaningful, very well worded, like I don't want to say like Pharisaical prayers, but it's a lot of like wordage, verbiage all up in the prayer. And then
Yeah.
sometimes it's literally I'm rolling in a parking lot like I'm gonna need you to open up a parking spot up front. Is that good? Okay, good.
Yes. Like some of
I'm
my best prayers that have the most profound breakthroughs have been help, please.
yes, I know. And
Help, please.
I say that now, and people just look at me, and then the I have those stories and I'm like, you don't understand. I mean, like, I'm just saying, like, I need you to do this like right now. Can you open this spot? I was
We're
with some ladies one
totally
time and they're like, it is definitely Jessica has like a special thing with God. We never get to park this close.
parking lot favor, baby. I love it. I
Hey,
totally have the
you don't
parking
have it
spot
if you
favor.
don't ask.
I love it. That's so good. And I think
Yeah.
it's so true. And there's so much that goes into that. And we'll move on after this, but I think a lot about expectation and faith of like so much of the New Testament is about it. You have it because you believed, because of
Yeah.
your belief, you're healed. Because of your belief, you
Yes.
have this.
Yes.
And we have to believe, you have to literally believe that that parking spot's going to open
Yeah.
up for
Yeah.
you. And then
I
there it
do.
is.
Yeah. There it
And
is.
then and then it happens, right?
Yeah.
But then
Yep.
on the flip side of that too, I have a necklace that has a mustard seed in it to remind
Mhm.
us that it also, because that's the dichotomy, right? Like it's not
Yes.
all up to we have to believe hard enough and
Yes.
strong enough for the thing. Like there's the flip side of it that's like you just need a tiny little speck of faith
Yeah.
and he can
Yeah.
still make it happen.
Yeah.
So let's go back. Let's talk about Jessica and let's go
Mhm.
back a little bit to some of the things that I want to go through, like kind of your triumph to tragedy story. I'm no, I do not. I want to go
That's
to your
it's like tragedy.
tragedy.
I was so tracking with you. I knew exactly what you meant to say, girl.
We are not speaking that over your life.
Play that part backwards and you'll get it. It'll be
We
fine.
are we are going to talk about your tragedy to triumph story.
Hmm.
So there were some traumatic things that you've been through. So let's dive
Yeah.
in because I saw on your application some things that I didn't even know, right?
Yeah.
About you and your journey. I knew about the infertility and then the
Yes.
beautiful outcome of that, and I shared that with my friends that are dealing with that as well. But
Yeah.
your husband's TBI was also a big moment for you. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah,
I will say when I grew up in a very traditional home, I grew up in the church. One would think that I really had like all the knowledge, all the relationship, life together. I looking back now, know I was a very broken person.
mm,
So much people pleasing, performance anxiety. Um, didn't necessarily feel anxious, but was definitely operating in a just buckle your head down, Jessica, do the thing, get the achievement, get the degree, get the this thing, this thing, this thing, and then they will have to like you. They will have to accept you. There was a lot of vowels and I say word curses because that's essentially what scripture would say that they are. They were death things that were spoken over me from this concept of like, well, you have a really pretty face, you have these gifts and talents, but you also are plus size. And so, unless you lose weight or you're this size in your body, people won't accept you. They won't choose you.
mhm.
So, I was like, well, watch me prove that wrong
Yeah.
instead of dealing with some of the emotional things about why I was experiencing that in my body.
Mhm.
Um, and so, I got married at age 24. My husband had had some medical conditions before we got married. So he was born premature. He had a brain hemorrhage at 3 months old. And he was in the NICU because they were him and his brother were twins, were 26 weeks old when they were born. So in the NICU, he was in there for 5 months total. And he has something called a brain shunt, which is he has hydrocephalus or extra fluid on the brain, and this shunt takes off the extra fluid, which I knew that going into marriage. 3 years after we got married, he went in for a revision. So these revisions aren't standard, like they're not timed. It's just more like when does it malfunction? We need to go in and replace it.
Mm,
And so we were 3 years into our marriage. We had just come through a season where there was an emotional affair that had taken place, pretty serious one. So that was a real challenge to my identity, like not absorbing that this was that I was bad or wrong, I think was the first like challenge that the Lord wanted me to take away from that. Like, how are you? Um, how are like this is not reflective of who you are. I know a
mm,
lot of women when their spouses have actions want to first think like, how can I fix this? What's wrong with me?
Mhm.
Especially when men struggle with pornography. They want to be like, well, what's wrong with me? And
Mhm.
so um, the Lord had that lesson for me, but he had a brain injury, the shunt revision shortly after that. And when they did that, essentially it caused a traumatic brain injury. And he didn't lose his memories, but if you've ever watched the movie Inside Out,
Mhm.
it's
Mhm.
the cartoon. I say
Yeah.
what happens to him is like his brain got shaken, and the memories that were in there, is like the Inside Out movie, they all fell off the shelves and then they got refiled at random places. So his emotional connection and pathway to me actually completely went away.
Wow.
And he lost about 10 years of connectivity to memories. So kind of put him back to like high school age. So he lost the ability to do everything. He was more or less it's sort of like in a comatose type state for about 2 weeks. And that was a whole miracle and how the Lord brought him out of that. But when he did, he had to learn how to walk again, talk again, feed himself, drive, do all the functions of life. He was in an inpatient rehab for brain neurofunctions. And then he had 3 months of outpatient rehab to be able to learn how to function in life. That was a really difficult season. They say these things like, oh, 7 year marriage and the things that fall apart. Ours was 3. I'm like,
I
we're
was gonna
collapsing
ask
time
that.
around here. We're
Yeah.
collapsing time 3 years
So you
in.
were 3 years married and you were how old at the time?
I don't remember. I think it was 28. It was
Okay.
28.
So in your
Um,
20s,
yeah,
3 years
yeah,
married and going
yes.
through this.
Yeah, so
Right.
he had the fair. We get the reset spiritually. We kind of come back around. He goes straight into this. He forgot everything that had just happened, all the painful things we had just gone through. In that year, we lost our apartment because he couldn't work. And the teaching job that I had, the school closed. So I lost my job, we lost our apartment, and I lost my husband.
I can't imagine how alone it would feel to then have to deal with the trauma of what happened in your relationship
Yeah,
alone and having
yeah,
to have no recollection of, so therefore no remorse. You can't have
yeah,
remorse if you don't
yeah.
even remember
And
doing.
ties that were severed as part of that, like I'm gonna come out of this and change. He didn't understand afterwards why those ties had been severed. So there's this like weird balance. And to the rest of the world, he had returned to a version of normal. But when you're intimate with somebody, you know when things are different. And it began this process of like finding the new normal. What does that look like for us to heal? So it was that was a difficult year. Yeah. So
Yeah.
we lost our apartment because we couldn't afford to live anymore there. So we moved in with his family for about 6 months till I could find a new job because then it was also like taking him to therapy every day. He couldn't walk, like he was with a walker for a long time, and then he was cleared to drive eventually and all those things. But taking him to therapy every day, trying to find a job, trying to figure out life, everything, like moment by moment is what we're trying to figure out. And how do you repair something you don't know is lost? Like, how do you get back to a relationship you don't actually have a connection to what you lost? Like, you don't even know what you lost. So it was a long, difficult road, and we did the best versions of what we could in the moment with what we had. We ended up renewing our vows um, about 7 or 8 years later, I think, from that day. And it was not an even year in our marriage, but for us, it was like, I'm tired of you saying you don't remember anymore. Like, we're just going to create new memories.
Wow.
But about 2 years after that, we started our journey with having children. We decided that was going to be the next level of us kind of just moving forward, feeling this sense of normalcy in a marriage and stuff like that, having no idea that it was going to be a very long journey.
Mm.
So we had our first, we needed some support in the very beginning, and we had our first loss. And I tell everybody I did what every person does when they lose a child. I decided to go back to grad school because what other way to deal with the intense pain of losing a baby than to just dig yourself into something so
Yeah.
completely different?
Yeah.
Um, And
Distraction.
that began such an unhealthy pattern of dealing with the pain and things
Mm,
um, of what we had. So that was a 10 long year journey
wow.
of many losses. I got really physically sick in there. I did get my master's degree. I piloted a whole career department at the charter school system. They had no counselors.
Looked like you were doing great on the outside.
Yeah, like to everybody that was watching from the outside, like my Instagram highlight reel, they would have been like, okay, she doesn't have kids, but she's got a career, she's moving up the ladder, like
Mhm.
I was performing,
Yeah.
but I was really still struggling inside. And part way through that, the Lord had enough mercy on me to say, you've got to fix you. You've
Yeah.
got to fix this intense pain that you are going through. And I had several very deep healing experiences where the Lord allowed me to go, I think, go back to see that version of myself as a child. And that's ultimately all my platforms have the name Vibrant in them now. And
Mhm.
that's really where that came from, was
Mm.
that what he spoke over me was, I am loved, I am beautiful, and I am vibrant.
Ah, wow. So I have two questions. First, I just want to ask, what did that experience, was it, you say he spoke over you, and I
Yeah.
know I love to really break it down like really simply for people, because when I was growing up, I grew up in a house with a pastor that would talk about God speaking to him, and I just took me until I was in my 20s to understand what that meant. So
Yeah.
that's so beautiful and so powerful. Take us into that moment of he spoke that over you. What was that? Was it a booming audible
Yeah.
voice in your room? Was it in
Yes
a
and no.
dream?
I was actually in a healing experience weekend. It was meant to, we were walking through different counseling theories to unpack wounds and trauma and healing. And it was an exercise we were going through. And the purpose of the exercise was to embrace truth about yourself that you had been previously not willing to believe.
Whoa.
And so there was a series of questions. We were in a small group. We were being led by trainers, and they sort of just would stand you across from the trainer. And I wasn't going first, but there was a girl there that had started to go first, and I saw them doing this line of questioning. I'm like, oh, like I'm all for like let's be 100% in, let's do the work. And also I'm like, I don't want to really go through this line of questioning. Like, and in that moment, even though the opportunity was present and the work was ready to be done, I I just heard, these are your, like, loved, beautiful, vibrant. In that moment, it just heard it. It came through.
Mm-hmm.
And so when they got to me, they're like, okay, what is it? What is the truth about you that you don't want to believe? What are the words you don't want to say? And for a lot of people, it was, I am loved, I am chosen, I am worthy, I am all of those things that if your heart wants to believe it, that's a truth about you that you are resisting. And so the process that they were taking people is, instead of resisting those words internally, just choose to say, I am in front of them. I am loved. I am chosen. I am worthy. I am enough. Whatever speaks to you. They wouldn't tell you, they would guide you through that. But for
Mm-hmm.
me, I didn't need any guiding. It just was downloaded while I was standing there, sort of as an observer. And so when they came to me and they're like, okay, what about you? And I'm like, da da da. Da. And they're like, 1,000%, like we know. And I ended up going back to be a trainer in that program. But you can see the switch in people when they decide to partner with the truth.
Yeah, so good. So, can you share with the listener that's going, I don't know what that is for me, and I don't know how to hear that for myself, some tips
Yeah.
of how to kind of partner with that truth, or even unlock that truth or hear from God in
I
that?
would say, if you think about your whole life and what you're going through right now, and that as a big, huge pile of ashes,
Mm-hmm.
and you reached into that pile of ashes and you pulled out a gemstone, what does that gem mean to you right now?
Mm-hmm.
Because the beauty of who we are, the truth of who we are, is hiding in our pain. but sometimes we don't want to actually sift through the pain to say yes to the truth that's there.
Wow, yep. That's so
And you can ask God to Lord, reveal this to me if you don't have that relationship with a God figure, but you could just say higher power. And sometimes you can just put the question out, reveal what is hidden here,
good.
because there is always treasure hidden in there.
So
But
good.
sometimes we just see the pain in the ashes. So just close your eyes and imagine you're looking at a pile of ashes. Imagine your hand just reaching in and it's going to pull out something. What is it pulling out?
Oh, so good. One more question about this season of your life before we move into the next
Yeah.
season, and that's, was there any blame? Did you blame God at all? Did it disrupt your faith at all going through these experiences and having these hardships?
No, it was more I blamed myself. A
Mm,
lot of like what's wrong with me is the question I would
mm,
ask a lot. What's wrong with me? Especially with the infertility. That was a question I asked for a very long time. What's wrong with me? Like the very thing I'm created to do, I cannot do. What
mhm,
is wrong that I need to fix about me? Even though I was asking the Lord for a child or for children and all that healing, I kept going back to certainly something must be wrong with me. Instead of
mm,
recognizing like this is a storyline here and there is an answer, there is a process. I just was like, what's wrong with me? Why am I so broken?
mm,
What do I need to fix? And I know that a lot of what the Lord wanted me to break out of was going back to the pattern of fixing the thing, of just doing the checking the list to get the answer, which is a beautiful part of our outcome of all of that too.
yes. Okay, so take us there then.
Yeah.
Let's go into the other side, the happy side, the outcome,
Yes.
lessons, the epiphany.
Yeah.
Yeah, tell us.
There's so much that I've learned about identity and who I am in that process that I felt like I had to look a certain way, sound a certain way, be a certain level of fixed for it to happen. I did decide there were other lessons along the way that I had learned. Um, but a couple pieces of the thing was the outcome was I was wanting it to look a certain way. So I felt like I had to fix the size of my body and some of my physical issues that I was having before I could have children. So I was on this journey of like forcing myself to do these things to change because that certainly must be the answer.
Mm,
And I was standing in a worship service and they were singing that song called The Blessing. And the line that they said is, May his favor be upon you for 1,000 generations. And I had a really very angry moment with God in the middle of that. And I said,
mhm,
this is not fair.
mhm,
I do not want to sing this song. How
mhm.
can I sing favor is upon me for 1,000 generations when I don't have one? Not one. There's not one generation, much less 1,000. Like, fix it.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know if that was truly the end point where it switched, but we ended up getting pregnant 2 or 3 weeks later.
Oh,
So there
oh
was
my
that.
gosh.
But when
There's
I
so
got,
much power in that because
yeah,
you got really, really vulnerable and really,
yeah,
really raw with God. And I think so many times we think we have to like not show
yeah,
him that side, right?
yeah,
Like even everything you were saying before, like we have to perform a certain way and be a certain way and do, but
yeah,
just being so just rip your chest open, raw and vulnerable because he already knows what we're feeling and what
yeah.
we're going through.
And so when I found out I was pregnant, if I'm going to talk about things from an infertility standpoint, so I don't want to say trigger warning, but I just want people to be mindful
Hmm.
of some of the things I'm going to say next. When you're in an infertility journey, you get into some really unhealthy habits, looking for that outcome, that hoping for your heart's desire, right? And one of those unhealthy habits was taking a test every month, or sometimes if I was late. And the pattern was, let me just go ahead and take the test. I know I'm late. It's just a stress factor, but if I take the test, my cycle will start and we can move on in life. It was
Mm-hmm.
really unhealthy. And I if that is you out there and you're listening, I just want to say I see you. And I know what it's like to be in that pain cycle. But I did take a test because we were about to move into our house and I was late and I was like, let me just take this test, get it over with. I didn't even actually anticipate that I was. I just knew that was the habit.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I took the test and I came out pregnant and I was like, so I called my friend and I was like, so I kind of took a test and it's pregnant. I was like, what do I do now? And she's like, what do you mean? What do you do? Like, you're pregnant. And I'm like, yeah, but what do I do? Like, because it had been a decade,
Mm.
120 months of taking tests and having no answer. So we took another test and it was pregnant and it was
Wow.
really cool. And
Wow.
and then I had a really another raw conversation with God and I'm like, look, either we're going to do this whole thing the whole way through to completion or we're not doing it. I'm not doing this again. I would rather have nothing than to have this false sense of hope and
Yeah.
to lose another one. I'm not here for that. So either we're going to follow this through to yes and amen and arrival, or we're not doing it at all. And I need you to rectify whatever that's going to be in the next few days.
Wow. I got
People,
chills when you said that. Like,
people were like, you are freaking crazy, Jessica.
no, it's so good.
But in that, then I had the next level of hard, which was I didn't lose the weight that I wanted to lose. I wasn't the size I wanted to be. And the lesson that God wanted me to know is I didn't want it to be about you performing to a certain standard for
Oh,
me to
yeah.
give you your miracle.
100%.
I didn't need it to be about you. And part of that whole journey, I felt like, was there were certain things that were off limits for us personally, and that was adoption or fostering. And for me, and I don't want anybody to mishear this for your own story, you have to be very clear with what the Lord is leading you to do. But for me, it felt like a Hagar answer for a Sarah promise. I
Mm.
knew that I knew that I knew that we had a promise of our own children.
Mhm.
And one of the scriptures that I still have about that is Romans 4:20. It says Abraham did not waver through unbelief regarding the promise of God, but strength was strengthened in his faith and gave glory to God. And it's still my screensaver to this day because he didn't waver. He didn't waver. And I felt like that was my thing. Don't waver. Don't waver. You have a promise. Don't back down from it. But halfway through, everybody finds out what they're having. It's this whole thing, the new gender reveal, blah, blah, blah. And I was pretty still a little bit frustrated with God because we couldn't get a solid answer on our gender reveal. I was like, what the heck? And we kept having these false things and like, we can't officially tell you, blah, 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 all this stuff. And the Lord and I had a very real conversation. He's like, I don't need you to worry about the sex of your baby because who I have put in your womb is who I have intended for you to steward. You know about identity and the tools that you have will equip them for the season and of life that they are called into, and it does not matter if it is a boy or a girl. Because I was so afraid that if it was a girl, I was going to break her.
Oh,
And
I
then
was
I was
wondering. I
then
was
I
like,
was
why
gonna
was he being so
then I was gonna ruin her because
wow.
I didn't feel fully healed in certain parts myself. I'd done all this work, but mothering a girl, I'm like, mothering a boy, I can do that. Like, sure, I'm all in for that. I can, but there's a whole different set of identity things that a girl needs to know than a boy.
Yeah.
And he's like, you're gonna do what I've equipped you to do. I've chosen the right one for you.
Wow.
So it was a couple weeks after that then that we found out we were having a girl.
Oh my gosh. And did you freak out, or was that message that God sent you enough
Yeah,
to
it was
carry you
enough.
through that?
Yeah,
Wow.
it was a very healing, and there's been a lot of parts, even as mothering her. I very young, all throughout the when she was in my womb, I would speak of her, pray over her, but when she came out, I would hold her, and I just remember speaking such life-giving things over her and speaking to her soul and her spirit. And in the quiet of the night, very late, rocking her and putting her to bed, and I would say these things, and tears would just run down my face that I got the opportunity to do this. And then when it would be still, the Lord would say, you know, you have to say that over you too.
Mm.
I know he
That's
had enough grace in all of that journey to give me something that wasn't just a deep heart's desire for myself, but was a fixing of those things that were still broken in me.
so powerful.
Yeah.
Wow. 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 Thank you for sharing that. And that is so, I love redemption.
Yeah.
Redemption is my favorite topic. And that was so redemptive in so many ways.
Yeah.
And you had to fight through some things, and there was a
Yeah.
lot of delay. But at the end of the day, your promise
Yeah.
came
Yeah.
and healed you in ways that you didn't even anticipate or expect.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. So good. Okay, so one of the things that you said was I thought I had to get everything right for God's blessings.
Yeah.
So I know that's so relatable to probably everyone at some point, right? I think
Yeah.
we're just in our nature is
Mm.
like this performance and this drive. And one of my big things that I lean into is you're a human being and not a
Mm.
human doing, right? I had to go
Yes.
through a whole journey of learning that it wasn't about performing or being a corporate executive or
Yeah.
achiever in order to feel valuable and worthy through my whole healing experience and my road
Yeah.
trip experience, right? Where do you feel like that has, like, what's the outcome of that in your life, and where do you think that belief is landing for you now, of like where how do you find your value now without performance and without that having to get everything right and do everything?
One of the messages that the Lord has really opened up for me in the last probably 2 years is something I call the hope factor.
Mm-hmm.
And part of that is when I went on this journey, I learned a lot about emotional work, and trauma and stuff like that. And there's hope is not listed as an emotion, it's actually a behavior that we learn from people that
Mm.
model it to us. Because my thought was, is like, if I'm really in these dark places, how can I help people shift to hope? How can I help them have more hope? How can I get them from out of the despair into hope? And when I, so there, C.R. Snyder, he did some research on this. He postulates that hope is comprised of three things: goal setting, a pathway to completion, and the sense of agency, which is the ability to believe you can do something.
Mm.
I believe that in my work and in my identity and in my healing, being flexible with the goal and the pathway to healing is really important. I knew the pathways for us for children and things like that did not involve fostering or adoption. Like the pathway can change and the goal has flexibility. But
Mm-hmm.
what it has always come back to is this idea that the hope, the peace, that sense of agency is what keeps us going or derails us. And the
Mm.
biggest thing that I took away from that is God continues to restore to me my sense of agency.
Mm-hmm.
You can do this. I've called you to do this. I've set you to do this. Here's a new door. I want you to do this. But also in that, aligning myself with the right people that also support or reflect that sense of agency. And what he's termed it for me is hope stealers, hope dealers, and hope healers. So there are hope stealers in your life, and they don't, I think a lot of them don't intend to steal it,
Right.
but they
Okay.
take away from the goal that you have by the comments
Mhm.
they make. They take
Yeah.
away from the path you're on. Well, why didn't you try it this way? Why didn't you do it that? They put you back in that performance. They put you back in that people pleasing. They take away from the sense of agency, the ability to believe you can do it. And when you leave their presence, you're always constantly doubting or recalibrating or overthinking or anxious or frustrated. They
Mm-hmm.
they are stealing
Yeah.
from you.
Be more realistic,
Yeah,
right?
like, don't do this thing, or why are you doing that? Or
Yeah.
did God really tell you to do that? That sounds kind of
Did God
crazy.
really say? That's
Yeah,
a good classic one.
yeah, yeah.
Yep.
But then there are hope dealers, and that uses word is used a lot. For me, what hope dealers means is there are people that surround you that don't necessarily know all the ins and outs. They're not full in on you, but they see something. Either they know about your goal, they see a little bit of the path you're on. They're kind of like the drive-through barista that's like, "Hey, here's your little dose of
Oh,
caffeine for the day."
yes, that's a great
They're
analogy.
they're just a little boost for wherever you're at. And it might be a group that you're in, a colleague, somebody sees you on Facebook. Hey, girl, I see you. I got you. Like you're doing well, or keep doing the thing, or I sell it. Just a little push for the day. And
Yeah.
it's just a dose of hope.
Yes, so
But
good.
then there are people that I term as hope healers. And those are people that show up in your life that God uses to heal the wounds they didn't create.
Ooh, that's so good.
They heal those wounds that say you have to perform to get this outcome by speaking truth to you, by continuing to show up, by saying, I love you, even though you're acting like somebody who has to perform. You know, you don't have to love, you don't have to do that in this relationship. They remind you, like for me, one of my hope healers was like reminding me of Jessica, you are in some friendships that keep stealing from you. You are partnering with people who, when you leave their presence, you shift. And I was like, they're
Oh,
like,
I think everybody just thought of somebody.
they're like, you are a better person. You deserve better. I had some really close friendships that every time I suffered a loss or went through something really dark with the fertility journey, would get mad at me and be angry at me and create chaos. And then every time I had a major celebration in my life or a major victory, would
Mhm.
say, I'm all in, I'm all in. Oh my gosh, I celebrate you until we get to the actual event. And then like 2 or 3 days later, they'd cause a big blow up and they wouldn't show up. For it was a pattern. And I,
Oh,
for some reason, kept letting them back in until one of my hope healers is like, girl, you deserve better friendships than this. People
yes.
that stay for the celebration,
Oh
people
my
that are
gosh, so good.
so healing wounds, they didn't create those wounds on that pathway.
Hmm.
They did not do that. And there have been multiple healers along the way that restored the sense of agency. And that for me is some of this lesson of like, I don't have to be as little girl performing because God will continue to speak identity in me, but He has put people in my life. And now I recognize, this is a hope stealer. I do not feel good after I leave their presence. We need to recalibrate. I don't even like a boundary. Like, let's really
Yeah,
exit them.
separation.
I bless them on to the next relationships in their life.
That's so good. I think literally everybody's probably having epiphanies out there right now regarding that. Like, oh, actually, I really am, I'm identifying somebody. I'm thinking, guys, whoever you just thought of, it's time to
Yeah.
make a decision in your life about whether or not that person deserves to be in your circle anymore. And to your point, is it boundaries or is it complete?
Yeah. And there was a book I listened to that really helped me reframe it in terms of boundaries because a lot of people feel like icky about it and it feels like I'm being restrictive and cutting people off. And the framework they had us kind of look through is I'm just blessing them into their next opportunity. And that's how I began to pray. Lord, I bless them into the next season of relationships they have with other people. Like move them out of my circle. I didn't have to say this is a boundary and you can't do this and you can't talk to me that. I didn't have to do any of that. They just stopped calling. They moved on.
Yes.
And the Lord just moved them right on out.
Yeah. And again, you didn't do it with bitterness or
No.
resentment or any of that. It was blessing and
Yeah.
releasing and forgiving and all those things. So that's definitely the way that needs to be done, or else there'll be
Yeah.
some blowback on
Yeah.
ourselves when we
And I
do.
don't have anything against boundaries, but for me, I just needed it to be a different way. And I'm like, okay, I bless them into their next season, their next situation, their next community, their next friendship. It's not going to be in me anymore. So just you're released to go. I didn't
Yeah.
even have to say it to them. They just went on away.
Amen. Yes. Oh my gosh. Okay. I want to close with this. I don't want to skip over it. I think it's really important and I think it's a big epiphany moment. So you talk about unwinding the treasure from trauma.
Yeah.
That line alone, unwind the treasure from your trauma. what does that mean, and how can we have some
Yeah.
takeaways from that?
The world and the people around us will tell us about the gift of who we are, that they will look at it as the negative, the dark side, the ashes. They will put us down for it. But there is a treasure aspect of us that is when we allow God to, when we're like a gemstone, we can be polished to shine. That is the refining of who we are.
Woo!
And for me, unwinding that treasure I've always been very emotional. It's one of the gifts that the Lord has allowed me to have, is to feel the emotional, and not even from like somebody's like they'll say, "Oh, you're an empath," and that's a trauma response, and that's this. It's a spiritual emotion shift that I feel. I can understand and know spiritually what's going on in the atmosphere without anybody saying a word, and I can speak it out, and people will be like, "Yes, confirm that's true." And but I was very emotionally expressive. I said my passion leaked out of my eyes from the time I was very young. But I was always took that as a negative, that couldn't have emotional expression. I couldn't cry. It was very negative about me. And I couldn't be too loud. I couldn't be silly. I couldn't be this. Even though my family was very expressive and loud, I felt like I was bad or wrong by the conversations around those things when I showed up in that way.
Huh.
And when the Lord gave me the word vibrant, and I said, yes, I'm going to align with that. One of the taglines that was sort of underneath that initially was, when the color of your bright life is too bright for others. And it's like, I have given you a sense of vibrancy for a lot of reasons.
Yeah.
That is the treasure of who you are.
Mm.
But trauma would say, you're too expressive, you're too loud, you color outside the lines, you are too angry, you cry too much, you do this. No, the Lord has allowed me to be a vibrant person in this world. That's the treasure of me. And when I choose to pull that out of the language of the trauma that I have been through, and the things that spoke over me. Now everybody, like, people are like, I love that your last name is for a long time it was just Jessica Vibrant on my socials. And then they're like, I love that your last name is Vibrant. That matches you so well. And I'm like, well, not really. That's a pseudonym the Lord gave me, but we're keeping it
That's so good. You're like, yeah, it'll work. It'll work.
because that's the treasure.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. How do people find you if they want to get in contact or get connected with you?
Yeah. Well, the socials that I mentioned, Instagram and Facebook is where I'm most active. Jessica
Okay.
Vibrant Hammock. I have a business page at Vibrant Voice, or you can find my website, www.vibrantvoice.life.
Nice. Okay. And we'll put all that in the show notes
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
I love you and I appreciate you.
Yes.
And thank you for all the gold that you dropped and all the epiphanies that people, I'm sure, have had based off of this conversation. And I can't wait to have you back one day. Before you go, I want to know, what was your epiphany from today's conversation? Let me know in the comments. If this episode made you think of someone, send it their way. And make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the next conversation. Until next time, I love you, I'm rooting for you, and remember, one epiphany can change everything.